Jinwoo Park had been missing for 47 hours and 13 minutes. The digital clock on Administrator Hai Jin Lee's desk kept counting, each second feeling heavier than the last. She stood at the main window of the colony command center, watching the search teams return from another failed mission. The orange light from Kepler 442b's twin suns painted everything in shades of rust and gold, making the crystal formations in the distance look like frozen fire. "Still nothing," reported Vrex Commander Klix as he entered the room. His insect-like body moved with quick, nervous clicks across the metal floor. "The electromagnetic storms in Sector 7 are getting worse. My scouts cannot get within 2 kilometers of where the human disappeared." Hai Jin did not turn away from the window. "Jinwoo is the best surveyor we have. He knows those crystal forests better than anyone." "Knew," corrected Klix, his compound eyes reflecting the harsh light. "Past tense, Administrator. No biological creature can survive that kind of electromagnetic interference for more than 6 hours. The storms scramble brain signals. They cause madness, then death." The door chimed, and Resonant Prime entered the room. The Keth representative stood nearly 3 meters tall, its body made of living crystal that caught and scattered light in beautiful patterns. When it spoke, the words came out as musical tones that the translation device turned into cold, logical speech. "The search has consumed 12% of our emergency power reserves," Resonant Prime announced. "Colony efficiency has dropped by 8% due to personnel reassignment. Logic dictates we terminate the search operation." "Logic," said a new voice from the doorway. Dong-Ho Kim stepped into the room, his work clothes still dirty from helping with the search. His face was tired, but determined. "You want to talk about logic? Jinwoo Park survived 3 different war zones before coming to this colony. He once walked 40 kilometers through a radioactive desert with a broken leg. You think some pretty lights in the sky are going to kill him?" Commander Klix's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of irritation. "Human emotional attachment clouds rational judgment. Your friend is dead. Accept this fact." Dong-Ho's hands clenched into fists. "He's not dead. I know Jinwoo. When he doesn't come back on time, it means he found something interesting, something worth the risk." "Like what?" Resonant Prime's crystal body flickered with skeptical patterns. "Sector 7 contains only standard crystal formations. Our geological surveys found nothing of value." "Your surveys," Dong-Ho emphasized the word, "missed a lot of things. Jinwoo has been finding mineral deposits your scanners never detected. He sees patterns you don't see." Hai Jin finally turned from the window. At 35, she was young for a colony administrator, but the responsibility of leading a mixed-species settlement had aged her quickly. "How long can the storms last?" "Unknown," admitted Klix. "These electromagnetic phenomena are new. They began 3 weeks ago and show no signs of stopping. The storms appear to be generated deep underground, possibly by tectonic activity in the crystal matrix. Or," Dong-Ho said quietly, "maybe they're not natural at all." The room went silent. Resonant Prime's crystal form stopped flickering entirely, which happened only when the Keth were deeply surprised. "Explain," commanded Klix. Dong-Ho moved to the room's central holotable and activated the display. A 3-dimensional map of the colony and surrounding area appeared with Sector 7 highlighted in red. "Look at the pattern," he said, pointing to the storm data. "These electromagnetic bursts aren't random. They happen in cycles. Exactly every 4 hours and 17 minutes, the intensity drops for 12 minutes, then builds back up again." Hai Jin studied the display. "That does seem organized." Jinwoo noticed it too, Dong-Ho continued. 3 days ago, he came to me with this data. He said it reminded him of a heartbeat, a very slow, very large heartbeat. Commander Klix's exoskeleton rattled. "You suggest the planet itself is alive? Impossible. Our initial surveys detected no signs of large-scale biological activity." Your surveys also missed the underground river systems that provide 60% of our water, Dong Ho shot back. Maybe your technology isn't as perfect as you think. Resonant Prime moved closer to the hollow table, its crystal form analyzing the data patterns. If these storms follow a predictable cycle, it would be possible to time a rescue mission during the low-intensity periods. Exactly what I've been trying to tell you, said Dong Ho. Give me a shuttle and I'll bring him back. Absolutely not, Clix declared. I will not authorize another human to disappear into those storms. We cannot afford to lose more colonists to emotional decisions. The argument that followed was loud and heated. Clix insisted that the search was over, that resources must be preserved for colony survival. Resonant Prime calculated probabilities and risk factors with crystal-cold logic. Dong Ho argued with the passion of someone who refused to abandon his friend, but Hyojin made the final decision. I'm authorizing one more search mission, she announced. Dong Ho, you'll take Shuttle 7. You have exactly one low-intensity cycle to get in and out. 12 minutes. That's not enough time to search properly, Dong Ho protested. It's all the time you get, Hyojin said firmly. And you're taking emergency beacons with you. If you're not back when the storms intensify, we'll at least know where to find your body. Clix's compound eyes turned toward the administrator. This decision goes against the recommendation of the colony's senior staff. I must file a formal objection. Objection noted and overruled, Hyojin replied. Dong Ho, you leave at dawn. The next low-intensity cycle begins at 0600 hours. As the others left the command center, Hyojin remained at the window. The crystal formations in the distance seemed to pulse with their own inner light, and for just a moment she thought she could see a pattern in their glow. A heartbeat. That night, Dong Ho prepared his equipment with careful precision. Extra oxygen, emergency rations, medical supplies, and communication gear. He packed everything he might need to find Jinwoo alive and everything he might need if he found him dead. But deep in his heart, Dong Ho believed his friend was still alive. Jinwoo Park was the kind of man who walked toward danger when everyone else ran away. He was the kind of man who saw possibilities where others saw only problems. And if Jinwoo had found something in those crystal forests, something worth staying, for then Dong Ho would find it too. The storm data showed another low-intensity period in 7 hours. 7 hours until he would learn the truth about what happened to the best surveyor on Kepler 442b. 7 hours until everything changed. Dawn came to Kepler 442b with the same orange glow that painted everything in shades of fire. Dong Ho Kim stood beside Shuttle 7, running through his final equipment checks. The electromagnetic storm readings showed exactly what he expected. In 23 minutes, the interference would drop to its lowest point. Administrator Hyojin Lee approached across the landing pad. Her face showed the strain of a sleepless night. Are you sure about this, Dong Ho? 12 minutes isn't much time. It's enough, Dong Ho replied, sealing his equipment pack. Jinwoo always said that 12 minutes of looking is better than a lifetime of wondering. Commander Clix watched from the safety of the control tower. His insect body remained perfectly still, but his compound eyes tracked every movement. Through the communication system, his voice carried clear disapproval. This mission violates basic safety protocols. The human emotional response to loss creates irrational decision-making. Maybe, said Dong Ho, climbing into the shuttle pilot's seat. But human emotions also make us do impossible things. The shuttle lifted off smoothly, its engines humming with quiet power. Through the cockpit window, Dong Ho could see the crystal formations of Sector 7 growing larger. The electromagnetic readings on his instruments began climbing as he approached the storm zone. Then, at exactly 0600 hours, the interference dropped. Dong Ho pushed the shuttle forward into the crystal forest, the formations around. Him rose like frozen lightning, each one unique and beautiful. But beauty was not what he came to find. He activated every scanner the shuttle carried, searching for any sign of Jin Woo or his equipment. Minutes passed. The electromagnetic readings began to climb again. "Shuttle 7, you have 4 minutes remaining," came He-Jin's voice over the radio. "Any sign of Jin Woo?" "Negative," Dong-Ho responded, banking the shuttle around a massive crystal spire. "But I'm seeing something strange down here. These crystal formations, they're arranged in patterns, almost like they were grown deliberately." "Dong-Ho, you need to come back now." Hyejin's voice carried new urgency. "The storm intensity is building faster than predicted." The shuttle's instruments began screaming warnings. Electromagnetic interference spiked beyond safe levels. Dong-Ho felt the controls becoming sluggish as the storm scrambled the shuttle's systems. And then the unthinkable happened. The communications went dead. The navigation systems failed. The shuttle's engines coughed once, then died completely. Dong-Ho found himself falling toward the crystal forest in a powerless shuttle, surrounded by electromagnetic chaos that turned his instruments into useless metal boxes. Back at the colony, alarm sirens wailed across the settlement. In the command center, technicians worked frantically at their stations while Commander Clix paced with agitated clicking sounds. "We've lost all contact with Shuttle 7, reported the communications officer. "Last telemetry showed complete system failure at the edge of Sector 7. Resonant Prime's crystal form flickered with rapid calculations. "Probability of survival in a crash landing within the storm zone is less than 12%. We have now lost 2 humans to this sector." Hyejin stared at the tactical display, watching the red warning indicators where Shuttle 7 had disappeared. "Start organizing rescue teams. We're not giving up on them." "Negative," Clix commanded sharply. "I cannot authorize more personnel to enter that death zone. We have already lost too much." The argument that followed filled the command center with raised voices and angry translations. But while the colony leaders debated, something extraordinary was happening in Sector 7. Deep, underground, in caverns that no surface scanner had ever detected, ancient systems began to respond. The electromagnetic storms that had raged for weeks began to shift and change. The chaotic interference started organizing itself into new patterns. On the surface, seismic sensors registered movement. Not the random shaking of tectonic activity, but coordinated purposeful motion. Something vast was stirring beneath the crystal formations. "Administrator?" called the seismic technician, his voice uncertain. "I'm reading massive movement signatures from underground. Multiple contacts, all converging on Sector 7. Hyejin hurried to the seismic station. The display showed contacts that defied explanation. Some were enormous, measuring hundreds of meters across. Others seemed to exist only partially in normal space, appearing and disappearing from the sensors. "What could cause readings like this?" she asked. The technician shook his head. "Nothing in our geological database matches these patterns. It's like the planet itself is waking up." Hours passed. The electromagnetic storms continued, but their pattern was changing. Instead of the regular 4-hour cycles, the interference began to organize itself into complex waves that seemed almost musical. Commander Click studied the new storm patterns with growing unease. "These electromagnetic signatures are unlike anything in our scientific records. They suggest intelligence, purpose." "You think something down there is controlling the storms?" Hyejin asked. "Impossible," declared Resonant Prime. "Our initial planetary surveys would have detected any large-scale intelligence. This world showed no signs of advanced life forms, but as the day progressed, the impossible became undeniable. The seismic readings showed more movement, always coordinated, always purposeful. The electromagnetic storms continued their new patterns, creating interference that seemed less chaotic and more like communication. And then, as the second day ended and the third began, long-range sensors detected something that made everyone, In the command center, stop what they were doing. Movement on the surface of Sector 7. Large shapes emerging from underground, and walking calmly among them, two small human figures. The visual scanners, fighting through the electromagnetic interference, managed to capture partial images. Jin-Woo Park and Dong-Ho Kim, alive and apparently unharmed, walking beside creatures that shouldn't exist. The beings around them defied easy description. Some appeared to be made of the same crystal material that covered the planet's surface, but they moved with fluid grace. Others seemed to be composed of living metal that shifted between solid and liquid states. Most strange of all were entities that appeared to exist partially in the electromagnetic spectrum itself, visible only as patterns of energy that moved with clear intelligence. "By the Hive Queen," whispered Commander Klix, his compound eyes wide with shock. "What has your species done?" The approaching group was still kilometers away, but already the colony's sensors were detecting changes in the environment around them. The electromagnetic storms were calming wherever they walked. The crystal formations seemed to respond to their presence, glowing with inner light. And at the front of this impossible procession, Jin-Woo Park walked with a smile on his face, as if he was bringing old friends home for dinner. The search party had given up after 2 days. But Jin-Woo Park was returning with companions that would change everything the colony thought they knew about their new world. The colony alarm systems screamed warnings as the impossible group approached the settlement perimeter. Emergency protocols activated automatically. Defense barriers rose from the ground while weapon systems tracked the massive beings walking beside the two humans. Commander Klix rushed between control stations, his insect body moving with frantic energy. "Battle stations! All personnel to emergency positions! We are facing an unknown hostile force!" "Wait," Administrator Hyojin Lee called out, studying the visual feeds. "Jin-Woo and Dong-Ho don't look like prisoners. They're walking freely." Through the main viewing screen, everyone could see Jin-Woo Park at the front of the group. He carried a standard colony communication device and was trying to reach the command center. His voice came through clearly, calm and confident. "Colony Control, this is Jin-Woo Park. Please stand down all defensive systems. I repeat, stand down all weapons. We are not under attack. We are making first contact with the real inhabitants of this planet." Resonant Prime's crystal form flickered with rapid calculations. "Impossible. Our planetary surveys detected no advanced life forms. This world showed no signs of civilization." "That's what we thought too," came Dong-Ho's voice over the radio. "Turns out we were looking in the wrong places." The beings accompanying the humans were unlike anything in the galactic species database. The largest appeared to be made entirely of crystal, similar to the formations that covered the planet's surface. But these crystals moved with purpose and grace. Their bodies caught the orange sunlight and scattered it in brilliant patterns. Other creatures seemed to be composed of living metal. Their forms shifted constantly between solid and liquid states, sometimes appearing as towering humanoid figures, other times flowing like silver water across the ground. Most mysterious were the beings that existed partially as pure energy. They appeared as shifting patterns of light and electromagnetic force, visible only when they chose to make themselves seen. "These entities register as both organic and inorganic," reported the science officer, her voice filled with confusion. "My sensors cannot classify them using any known biological categories." Jin-Woo stopped 50 meters from the colony's main gate. The massive beings behind him remained perfectly still, but their presence filled the air with a sense of ancient power. "Administrator Lee," Jin-Woo called out, "I need you to trust me. These beings have been living underground for millions of years. They've been watching every species that has ever landed on this planet, and they want to meet with us." Commander Klix's mandibles clicked rapidly. "A trap. Obviously a trap. The humans have been compromised. Their minds have been altered. but Jin studied Jin Woo's face through the visual scanners. She had worked with him for 3 years. She knew his expressions, his mannerisms. He looked tired but alert. Most importantly, he looked happy. "Open the main gate," she ordered. "Administrator, I strongly protest," Clix began, but Jin cut him off. "Protest noted. Open the gate." The massive barriers retracted with a heavy grinding sound. Jin Woo walked forward alone, his hands raised in the universal gesture of peace. Behind him, the strange beings waited with patience that spoke of vast age. Jin met Jin Woo at the gate, flanked by nervous security officers. Up close, she could see that he looked healthier than when he had disappeared 3 days ago. His usual fatigue from long survey missions was gone. "Jin Woo, what happened to you out there? We thought you were dead." Jin Woo smiled, and the expression transformed his weathered face. "Dead? I've never felt more alive. Administrator, I want you to meet Echo of Deep Time." One of the energy beings flowed forward, its form shifting from pure light into something roughly humanoid. When it spoke, the voice seemed to come from everywhere at once, automatically translated into perfect standard galactic. "Greetings, Administrator. Jin Lee. We have watched your colony since your arrival 18 months ago. We have observed your species with great interest." Commander Clix stepped forward, his exoskeleton rattling with tension. "Observed us? For what purpose? Why did you not reveal yourselves before now?" The energy being's form shifted slightly, patterns of light flowing through its translucent body. "We have learned caution over the ages, Commander Clix. Many species have claimed our world as their own. Most take what they need and leave when resources become scarce. Some attempt to strip our planet bare of its crystal formations. But humans behave differently." A new voice joined the conversation. One of the crystal beings stepped forward, its body ringing like distant music with each movement. "I am Memory of Stone. We are the eternal shepherds, the guardians of this world and keepers of its deep secrets." Resonant Prime moved closer, its own crystal form analyzing the newcomer. "You claim to be native to this planet, yet our geological surveys found no evidence of your existence." Memory of Stones. Crystal Body chimed with what might have been laughter. "Your surveys examined the surface and shallow depths. We live in the deep crystal networks, in spaces your technology cannot reach. We exist partially outside normal space, in dimensions your physics barely understand. But why reveal yourselves now?" Jin asked. "What changed?" Echo of Deep Time's energy form pulsed brighter. "Your friend Jin Woo changed everything. When he became lost in our electromagnetic defenses, he could have waited safely for rescue. Instead, he chose to risk his own survival to help creatures he had never seen before." The being gestured, and the air filled with holographic images. The scenes showed Jin Woo, battered and exhausted, working frantically to free small crystal creatures trapped by a rockfall. He used his emergency supplies not for his own survival, but to tend to injured beings that weren't even from his own species. "He worked for nearly 2 full days without rest," Memory of Stone added, its voice carrying notes of deep respect. "Using improvised tools and determination we had not seen in 3 million years of observation. He would not leave until every trapped creature was safe." Dongho stepped forward, grinning despite his exhaustion. "By the time I found him, he was half dead from the effort. But he had saved 17 crystal pups and was working on number 18. Commander Clix studied the holographic recordings with growing confusion. "Such behavior is inefficient. It serves no survival purpose. Why would a rational being risk death for unknown creatures?" "That," said Echo of Deep Time, "is exactly what makes humans so remarkable. The colony's main conference chamber had never hosted a meeting like this one. The room's environmental systems worked overtime to accommodate beings that existed partially outside normal space. The air shimmered with energy patterns as echo of deep time, settled into a form that could interact with standard furniture. Memory of Stone stood at the far end of the chamber, its crystal body creating beautiful light patterns on the walls. The third shepherd, who introduced itself as Current of Ages, appeared to be made of living metal that flowed like liquid silver. In 3 million years of observation, Echo of Deep Time began, we have watched over 400 different species land on our world. Most follow predictable patterns. The air above the conference table filled with holographic displays. Images of various alien species appeared, showing their activities on the planet's surface over vast stretches of time. First comes exploration, the energy being continued. Then resource extraction. Then conflict over who controls the most valuable deposits. Eventually, the species either destroys itself through warfare or strips the planet of everything useful and moves on. Commander Klix leaned forward in his specially designed chair. A logical progression. Resources are finite. Competition for them is natural. Natural, perhaps, said Memory of Stone, its crystal voice chiming like distant bells. But not inevitable. We have waited for 3 million years to find a species that might choose a different path. Current of Ages flowed closer to the table, its metal form shifting into a more solid state. Your species puzzled us from the beginning, humans. You established mining operations, yes, but you used less than 2% of available resources. You could have taken much more. Administrator Hyojin Lee studied the historical data floating in the air. We only take what we need. Taking more would be wasteful. Wasteful, repeated Echo of Deep Time, a concept most species abandon once they develop interstellar travel. They decide that efficiency means taking everything available regardless of consequences. Resonant Prime's crystal form flickered with analytical patterns. Efficiency is logical. Maximum resource extraction ensures species survival. Does it? Asked Memory of Stone. Let us show you the results of that logic. The holographic display shifted, showing the rise and fall of civilizations across the galaxy. Species after species achieved remarkable technological advancement, conquered multiple star systems, built vast empires, and then, inevitably, they collapsed. Over-extraction of resources leads to environmental collapse, Current of Ages explained, its metal form shifting to mirror the images. Competition for remaining resources leads to warfare. Warfare leads to destruction of the knowledge and infrastructure that made their civilization possible. Jinwoo watched the displays with fascination. How many species have you seen destroy themselves this way? In our galaxy alone? Over 12,000, Echo of Deep Time replied sadly. Each time, we hoped the next species might be different. Each time we were disappointed. The weight of those numbers settled over the room like a heavy blanket. 12,000 civilizations gone forever because they could not control their desire to take everything they could reach. But humans, Memory of Stone continued, showed us something we had thought extinct in the galaxy. True compassion for other species. New images appeared in the holographic display. These showed human activities not just on Kepler 442b, but throughout known space. Humans rescuing alien species from natural disasters. Human medical teams treating diseases in species they had never encountered before. Human engineers sharing technology freely instead of selling it for profit. Your species consistently chooses cooperation over domination, Current of Ages observed. Preservation over exploitation. Even here, your colony includes multiple species working together as equals. Commander Klix shifted uncomfortably. The Galactic Council requires mixed species colonies for frontier worlds. It is policy, not choice. Policy? Created by humans, Echo of Deep Time pointed out, and implemented by humans who insist on treating other species as partners rather than subordinates. Dong-Ho spoke up from his position near the back of the room. So you've been testing us this whole time? The electromagnetic storms? The hidden crystal formations? tests, yes, admitted Memory of Stone. But not designed to harm. We simply watched to see how your species would respond to challenges. Would you work together or turn against each other? Would you preserve the environment or exploit it? Would you help other species or focus only on your own survival? And we passed? Hyojin asked. Current of Ages flowed around the table, its liquid metal form catching the light. You more than passed. You exceeded our highest expectations. But the final test came when Jinwoo was trapped in our deep crystal networks. The holographic display returned to the images of Jinwoo rescuing the crystal creatures. Everyone could see his exhaustion, his determination, his complete disregard for his own safety while helping beings he didn't even understand. No other species in 3 million years has made such a choice, Echo of Deep Time said quietly. Risk everything for creatures that could offer nothing in return. This action convinced us that humanity might be ready for the knowledge we guard. The room fell silent. Hyojin felt the weight of implications she couldn't fully grasp. What knowledge? Memory of Stone's crystal form rang with deep musical notes. We are not just the guardians of this world, Administrator Lee. We are the keepers of wisdom from every civilization that has ever achieved interstellar travel. We preserve their knowledge, their art, their discoveries, their mistakes. The holographic display expanded, showing vast underground chambers filled with data crystals, energy matrices, and storage systems beyond human understanding. Every species that destroys itself leaves behind everything they learned, Current of Ages explained. Scientific discoveries, artistic achievements, philosophical insights, technological innovations. We save it all, hoping that someday a worthy species will use this knowledge to avoid the same mistakes. Commander Clix's compound eyes reflected the light from the displays. You offer us the accumulated knowledge of 12,000 civilizations? We offer humanity the chance to become the gardeners of the galaxy, Echo of Deep Time replied. To use this knowledge not for conquest or exploitation, but to guide younger species away from the paths that lead to destruction. The offer was staggering in its implications. Technologies that could solve every human problem, medical knowledge that could eliminate disease, scientific discoveries that could unlock the deepest secrets of the universe. But Hyojin understood the true weight of what the shepherds proposed. If we accept this knowledge, we become responsible for every species that develops interstellar travel in the future. Exactly, said Memory of Stone. You would become the teachers, the guides, the protectors, no longer just another species struggling for survival, but the guardians of galactic civilization itself. The choice before them would determine not just humanity's future, but the future of every species that would ever reach for the stars. The debate that followed the shepherd's offer lasted for 3 days. The colony's main conference chamber became the center of discussions that would reshape the future of galactic civilization. Commander Clix paced the length of the room, his insect body clicking against the metal floor with each agitated step. This proposal violates every principle of galactic law. You cannot give one species advantages over all others. The Galactic Council exists to maintain balance between civilizations. Balance, repeated Memory of Stone, its crystal form chiming, softly. Your council has maintained that balance for 50,000 years. In that same period, over 200 species have destroyed themselves through warfare, environmental collapse, or simple inability to cooperate with others. Resonant Prime flickered with rapid calculation patterns. Statistical analysis suggests that Council policies have successfully prevented large-scale galactic warfare for 47,000 years. This represents significant achievement. Prevention. Of large wars, yes, agreed Current of Ages, its metal form flowing into a more solid shape. But prevention of growth also. Your council maintains order through stagnation, No species is allowed to develop too far beyond others. No breakthrough technologies are shared freely. Progress slows to the rate of the least advanced members. Administrator Hye-Jin Lee sat at the head of the table, feeling the weight of decision, pressing down on her shoulders. The holographic displays around the room showed the evidence clearly. Civilizations that developed alone grew strong, but eventually destroyed themselves. Civilizations constrained by galactic law grew stable, but never reached their full potential. "What you're proposing," she said slowly, "is for humanity to become something entirely new. Not just another member species, but the teachers of all future species." Echo of Deep Time's energy form pulsed with ancient sadness. "We tried to be those teachers once long ago, but we made the mistake of remaining hidden, of testing species without revealing ourselves. By the time we judged any species worthy, they had already set patterns that could not be changed." "So you waited 3 million years for a species young enough to accept guidance?" Dong-ho asked from his position near the back of the room. "Young enough and mature enough," confirmed Memory of Stone. "Humanity has developed interstellar travel and established colonies, proving your technological capability. But you have not yet developed the arrogance that usually comes with such achievement." Jinwoo looked up from the technical data he had been studying. "The knowledge you're offering, it's not just scientific, is it? You have information about social structures, governmental systems, ways of organizing civilization that prevent the cycles of destruction." "Correct." Current of Ages flowed closer to the table. "We have observed every possible form of social organization. We know which systems promote cooperation and which breed conflict. We understand how to structure trade relationships that benefit all participants rather than exploiting the weak." Commander Clix's exoskeleton rattled with frustration. "And you would give all of this to humans alone? What gives them the right to judge other species? What makes them superior to the Vrex, or the Keth, or any of the other council races?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Hye-Jin felt every eye in the room focused on her, waiting for an answer that would justify humanity's selection, but it was Jinwoo who responded, his voice quiet but firm. "Nothing makes us superior," he said. "We're not stronger than the Vrex. We're not more logical than the Keth. We're not more advanced than most council species." He stood and walked to the holographic display showing the rescue of the crystal creatures. "But we do have something different. When I found those crystal pups trapped in the rockfall, I didn't think about whether they were valuable. I didn't calculate the risk versus reward. I didn't consider what I might gain from helping them. I just saw beings in pain, and I couldn't walk away." Dong-ho nodded agreement. "That's what makes humans weird, I think. We help first and ask questions later. We see suffering and we want to fix it, even when it's not our problem." "Inefficient," muttered Commander Clix, but his tone was less hostile than before. "Maybe," Hye-Jin admitted, "but maybe inefficiency is exactly what the galaxy needs. Maybe. Perfect logic and calculated self-interest are what keep leading species into the same destructive patterns." Echo of Deep Time's form brightened. "You understand. Logic and efficiency are tools, but they are not wisdom. Wisdom comes from knowing when to set aside personal benefit for the greater good. It comes from the ability to see beyond your own species, your own immediate needs." The holographic displays changed, showing human activities throughout known space, not just the dramatic rescues and medical missions, but smaller acts of daily kindness. Human traders who offered fair prices when they could have charged more. Human colonists who shared water with alien neighbors during droughts. Human diplomats who sought compromise instead of victory. These actions seem small, Memory of Stone observed, but they represent a fundamental difference in thinking. Most species see other civilizations as competitors, obstacles, or resources to be exploited. Humans see them as neighbors who might need help. Current of Ages shifted its metal form to mirror human posture. This is why we believe humanity can succeed where we failed. You will not remain hidden and judge from afar. You will work directly with developing species, offering guidance and assistance instead of tests and trials. The weight of the decision pressed down on everyone in the room. Accept the offer, and humanity would gain knowledge beyond imagination. But they would also accept responsibility for guiding every future spacefaring civilization away from the paths of destruction. Refuse, and the galaxy would continue its cycles of rise and fall, with species after species destroying themselves while ancient wisdom remained locked away. How long do we have to decide? Hyejin asked. Time is not a constraint for beings such as ourselves, Echo of Deep Time replied. We have waited 3 million years. We can wait longer if necessary. But Jin Wu shook his head. No, we don't need more time. I've seen what happens when good people wait for perfect conditions before acting. Problems don't solve themselves. He looked around the room at his fellow humans, then at the alien representatives who had become his colleagues and friends. We'll do it, he said simply. Not because we think we're better than anyone else, but because someone needs to try something different. And if we mess it up, he shrugged. At least we'll mess it up while trying to help people. The choice was made. Humanity would become the galaxy's gardeners, whether they were ready or not. The formal acceptance ceremony took place 7 days later, as 3 species worked together to prepare for humanity's new role. The colony's main assembly hall had been expanded to accommodate beings that existed partially outside normal space, and the air hummed with translation devices working overtime. Jin Wu stood at the center of the hall, representing not just the Kepler 442b colony, but all of humanity. The weight of speaking for his entire species should have been overwhelming, but he felt surprisingly calm. We accept the knowledge you offer, he said, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. And we accept the responsibility that comes with it. Echo of Deep Time's energy form pulsed with something that might have been joy. Then let the transfer begin. What followed was unlike anything in recorded galactic history. The Eternal Shepherds had spent millions of years developing ways to store and transfer knowledge that went far beyond simple data files. They had learned to preserve not just facts, but understanding, not just information, but wisdom. The process began with volunteers from the human colonists. Jin Wu and Dong Ho were the first to undergo the knowledge transfer, their minds carefully expanded to contain technologies and insights from thousands of vanished civilizations. It's incredible, Jin Wu whispered, as the first wave of new knowledge settled into his consciousness. I can see why species make the mistakes they do. The patterns are so clear once you understand them. Memory of Stone chimed softly. Understanding the patterns is the first step. Teaching others to see them is the greater challenge. The transfer process took weeks. Each human colonist received knowledge tailored to their role and capabilities. Scientists received advanced technologies that could solve energy problems and cure diseases. Engineers learned construction techniques that could build cities without harming the environment. Diplomats gained insights into negotiation and conflict, resolution that had been refined over millions of years. But perhaps most importantly, everyone received the historical records. They could see with their own eyes how species after species had fallen into the same traps of greed, fear, and the inability to work together. Commander Clix observed the process with growing unease. You are creating a species of beings with capabilities far beyond their natural development. This violates the basic principles of galactic civilization, principles that have failed repeatedly, Current of Ages pointed out, its metal form flowing into a more diplomatic shape. Perhaps it is time to try new principles. Resonant Prime's crystal body flickered with complex calculations. The risks are significant. Humans with such advanced knowledge could become conquerors rather than teachers. Power often corrupts even well-intentioned species. True, admitted Administrator Hye-Jin Lee, who had been among the first to receive the full knowledge transfer. But that's exactly why the shepherds chose us. We're not taking this knowledge to make ourselves powerful. We're taking it to help others avoid the mistakes that destroyed so many civilizations before them. The proof of humanity's intentions came in their first actions with their new knowledge. Instead of using the advanced technologies for their own benefit, the human colonists immediately began sharing them with their alien colleagues. Medical techniques that could extend Virec's lifespans by decades were freely offered to Commander Clix. Engineering knowledge that could make Keth crystal growing more efficient was shared with Resonant Prime. Agricultural methods that could increase food production were made available to all member species of the colony. Why? Commander Clix asked, his compound eyes studying the medical data the humans had given him. This knowledge could have given your species overwhelming advantages over ours. Jinwoo looked up from the communications array he was modifying with advanced shepherd technology. Because that's not the point. The point is to help everyone live better lives. What good does it do us to be healthy and prosperous if our friends and neighbors are struggling? It was such a simple statement, but it represented a fundamental difference in thinking that impressed even the ancient shepherds. In 3 million years, Echo of Deep Time observed, we have never seen a species immediately share power-giving knowledge with potential competitors. This confirms our choice. The changes that followed transformed not just the colony, but the relationship between species throughout that sector of space. Human ships began visiting other worlds, not as conquerors or traders, but as teachers and helpers. When the Zephyrian homeworld faced ecological collapse from industrial pollution, human experts arrived with technologies that could clean their atmosphere in decades instead of centuries. When the Rigelian colonies were threatened by asteroid impacts, human engineers provided shield generators that could protect entire planets. But perhaps most importantly, humans began teaching other species the social and governmental techniques that could prevent the cycles of self-destruction. Young civilizations learned about cooperation instead of competition, about sustainable resource management instead of extraction-based economies, about building societies that could last for millennia instead of burning brightly and then collapsing. The Galactic Council initially opposed these activities, viewing them as violations of their careful balance of power. But as species after species reported dramatic improvements in their quality of life and stability, opposition began to fade. The humans are not seeking to control us, reported the Andromedan ambassador at a council session 6 months later. They teach us techniques and then leave us to implement them as we see fit. They offer guidance without demanding obedience. A year after the first contact with the Eternal Shepherds, Jinwoo found himself back where it all began, standing in the crystal forests of Sector 7. But now the electromagnetic storms had been completely tamed, and the underground cities of the shepherds were open to visitors from across the galaxy. Dongho joined him at the edge of a crystal formation that pulsed with soft musical light. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if the search party hadn't given up after 2 days? Dongho asked. Jinwoo smiled, watching as human children played alongside young beings from a dozen different species, all of them learning together in schools that taught cooperation and understanding. If they hadn't given up, you never would have crashed your shuttle. The shepherds might never have decided to reveal themselves, and none of this would have happened. So you're saying the best thing the search party ever did was quit early? Maybe, Jinwoo replied. Or maybe the best thing I ever did was get lost in the first place? In the crystal depths below them, Echo of Deep Time pulsed with ancient satisfaction. The galaxy finally had its gardeners. Species that had been spiraling toward destruction were learning new ways to live. The cycles of rise and fall that had claimed thousands of civilizations were finally being broken. And it had all started with one human who couldn't walk away from creatures in need, and another human who refused to give up on his friend. Care. Eternal shepherds had waited 3 million years for teachers worthy of their knowledge. In the end, they found them in the most human of qualities: stubborn compassion and the refusal to abandon hope. The galaxy would never be the same.